Yo, it's your boy Roy, and it's another episode of Sync Gems. Today we have Jelle Dittmar. He is a Dutch phenom. He's just a beast. You can see it on his socials. You can see his success. You can see the labels he works with. Again, he works with the big three, with BMG, Warner Chappell. I'm not sure if he's worked with Universal yet, but he's definitely on the way there. Dude's killing it. Dude has worked on video games as well. He's a self-taught piano player, which is just, man, it's mind-blowing to see what this dude has made from only his ears and heart. We talk about things like why being yourself is your biggest asset. We talk about composing from the heart. We talk about the power of not quantizing. We talk about real life connections versus email, balancing front and back end in the work that you do. We talk about saying no and earning more. So I think just stick this one till the end. I say it all the time, but yeah, these guests are just something else. If y'all dig this podcast, please go ahead, leave it a 5-star rating and a review if you are on Apple. If you are not, go and give it a 5-star rating on Spotify. Most important thing you can do is follow the podcast. If you didn't do the other two, just follow the podcast, follow it on socials. On Instagram, I post updates all the time and just little chunks of wisdom that I get on my journey. So yeah, thank y'all for doing that. It's episode 51. So if y'all haven't been doing that, I would probably not be here right now. So keep doing that. Keep showing the love. And without further ado, my man, Jelle.
Hello.
What is happening, brother?
It's good. How about you?
I'm doing amazing, man. I'm happy we finally get to connect after a while where
Yes.
I've been following your stuff, and it's been looking that like you're doing things the right way, and you're going big and not going home. I mean, you are home, but you're definitely embracing the approach of just doing things big, and from your social media presence to the people who you work with. And we're going to get into that in this interview. I just want to start by getting your background, how you were brought up, and how you started with music, and how you got to where you are today.
Well, it's a very long story, but I'll try to keep it as short as possible. When I was 11 years old, I discovered I could play piano, and that when I heard a song, I could play it within an hour. So the first thing I played on the piano ever was Window to the Past from John Williams, from the movie Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. And then with Christmas, I got a better keyboard, and I practiced, got a couple of piano lessons, but actually I cannot read notes still to this date, because I just can't keep up with the concentration and the focus of sheet music. I can follow along when a recording session though. But after the piano lessons, I took some band practice sessions with a friend of mine, and I got into this band with fellow people in the same age. And so I was basically composing music for this band. I also did some orchestral work, and when I discovered the movie Backdraft by Ron Howard with the music from Hans Zimmer, that's when I got interested into getting into film scoring. So I was composing for this rock band and composing orchestral music and practicing in that area. And then in 2018, when we had some more experience, I went to a demo day with some major record labels in Amsterdam, and they all said about the band, the rock band, it was mediocre. It was it was not really their standard. But when I showed my orchestral music to BMG during that demo day, they were over the moon. So they basically offered me a free pitch, a demo, and then we would see how it went from there. So I made some music, and then they said your mixes are still below average. So I had to. I went to the SCE in Amsterdam, which is the School of Audio Engineering, and I did a 4-year bachelor degree course for audio engineering. But already a couple of weeks in this program in this school, my mixes improved significantly. And in 2018, in December, I think, I got my first composer agreement with BMG, and that's how I got started into the production music industry. And I've been doing that ever since.
Well, you did keep it short, but I'm interested in a few things in
All right,
there.
go ahead.
So are you still? So you said you're still till this day playing music by ear?
Yeah, I cannot read any notes. I
Wow,
know a bit of
wow,
musical theory, but basically, I compose from the heart and not from the mind. That's how I
wow.
always say it. I don't know if it's
Yeah,
correct, but
but like I mean, especially with I don't know, like cinematic sounding music and things that are more technical. Like I think about these as maybe I need to like practice scales, maybe I need to practice all these things. How'd that go about for you?
basically, I just compose when I, for example, compose orchestral music. I start with the drums, or I start with a melody line on the piano, and then when I want to record strings, I have a couple of good virtual plugins, and then I just use that. But it all basically comes automatically to me. Don't really have a process on how I compose. It just when I hear something that sounds good or decent, I just start along composing. It's just a natural process. I simply cannot describe how this process comes to be when I compose orchestral music. It's just like listening. I always listen to my music very, very carefully. And if I hear a wrong note or something that's a little bit off, I just tweak it immediately because I can hear. I have a very good hearing regarding music. And this is why I can listen to music and play it on the keyboard an hour later. Um, so yeah, it basically is a natural gift. I think that's the best way to put it. I simply cannot describe how I compose my music because I have
Mm.
no idea at all myself.
Yeah, and that's amazing, man. I feel like that's how jazz came about, right? Like
Yeah,
a lot of people who couldn't basically buy tickets into shows would sit outside of shows and they would imitate what the other
yeah,
jazz player was playing, and that then it became like this thing where people would actually transcribe so much of another person, like a Coltrane or whatever, and then they would put their flavor into it, and then they would become like the Thelonious Monks or the even though like you can't bring a piano to the outside of a club, but you know like people the Wes Montgomerys and people who are huge in the jazz thing just did it all by ears, and it's just like it's so crazy to think about sometimes because they would do such complex things. Like if you go into it, like if you're very analytical, oh my god, he did the flat nine here and I don't know how he did it. He did it because he let it go, he let it all
yeah,
go, and it feels like that's what you do when you get into your creative oneness,
yeah.
which is
Absolutely, absolutely. It's
so like yeah.
it's also like I'm very inspired by multiple composers, and I try to not imitate or copy them. I'm inspired by them. That's always the term I'm using. I'm inspired by them, and I'm also inspired by bands, for example, Queen, Genesis, or Fallout Boy, even Imagine Dragons. Basically all these sounds I just get into my head basically transcribes at some point into my music. But there was also a time when when I started out into composing music, I wanted to have everything perfect. So I was really trying to make music sound as perfect as possible. And right now, when with more experience along the way, I try to experiment more with dissonant tones. Like I bought an electric cello. You can see over here in the corner. I cannot play it by the love of it, but I can make some very annoying, scratchy tones that are making its way into the music. And basically, trying to do more sound design into my music, not making it as perfect as possible, not quantizing everything 100% to the beat. Even with strings, I did this in the beginning, quantizing the strings in the piano 100%. But I started to feel that it became more artificial and more robotic. So right now I don't quantize anything. I just play it in with, especially with strings and piano. With drums, sometimes I quantize it 100%. But with violins, with piano, with guitar, I just don't quantize it anymore because it sounds more authentic, more original, and less robotic.
Mm. So yeah, there's the first pro tip. Uh,
Yes, yes.
yeah, hope people are taking notes out here. This is fire, man. This is fire. So like, how did you? So you started working with BMG. From there, what did it look like to like making full time a full time living from sync, or even a part time living from sync? Because we all know that sync doesn't just come about and sweep you away with uh, um, financial riches in the
Yeah, yeah.
first 5 days. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the time it takes for your royalties to get in is extremely long. Um, but I had a couple of jobs here in my hometown, um, and I paid my college from it and that kind of stuff. And then I still live with my parents, and I decided because housing in the Netherlands is extremely expensive right now. But I lived in the past 4 years. I still live with my parents, and I could 100% focus on sync music. This is basically a benefit I had, that I had supportive parents that really said, "Well, go for it." And right now I'm able to make a full-time income with it, with sync music. So it takes a lot of time, a lot of dedication as well, and sometimes you just need to be completely crazy to just try and do this.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and it comes to talk about like supportive environments, which is
yeah,
so important, man. Like
absolutely.
I've always had a supportive environment, but I felt like it was supportive, but it wasn't elevating me,
Yeah,
if that
yeah,
makes
yeah,
sense. So that's why I had to live to leave Israel, just because I wanted, not because people were bad there or unsuccessful. I was surrounded with a lot of very successful people, but something in what I was experiencing wasn't letting me live to my full potential.
yeah,
And so for me, it was what made me who I am today. And I feel like that's a really powerful thing to double click on, because if the people around you don't really believe in your craziness,
yeah,
and in you buying an oud and starting to play with it from nothing, then yeah, then maybe, I mean, I don't want to say for sure you got to disconnect yourself and do whatever, but for for me, it was definitely disconnecting. So I definitely, I resonate with yourself and with you, and I feel like people around me who are super supportive of me is an important thing. My girlfriend right now is just like, I feel like she's one of the reasons why I'm making more money as well, because it was just like she believes in me so much that it was like, if she believes in me so much, I better believe in myself as much, at least.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, basically, my parents are my biggest critics, but also my biggest fans as well. My father, he knows earlier than than me or the labels when my music gets placed, because he's always looking on Google if there's a placement with my music. So he's very on top of things. So yeah, I mean, my parents are very supportive, and basically, when I started out making music, I had nothing to lose. I had a couple of crappy jobs that just got me by, and then I just decided I want to do this for the rest of my life. I better make some work into it. And thanks to my family and my parents that were so supportive, I was able to make that happen. And there were a couple of times where I just thought, well, this is not going to work. I need to do something else or get a normal job. Um, but it was because of the supportiveness from my parents and from friends as well, and from the community, from the composing community as well. I have a couple of friends in Germany, in the US, that are also very supportive. They were supportive to me, and they're still supportive. And I think the boundaries, the borders have been shifted with the coming of the internet and the online communities, like for example, Perspective on Facebook, which is a great source of knowledge. And I think because of that part, the digital realm and the physical realm, the supportiveness in both areas really pulled me over the border to just focus on this full time.
Yeah, yeah. Is so was there like a moment for you where you were like, this is it, or do you feel like it happened over time, kind of thing, slow burn?
I think it was always there that I just wanted to make a living out of music, because music for
Mm,
me is not only a way of just having good fun, but it's also a way of communicating. Because I have autism and I've been diagnosed with autism for my entire life. So basically, when I started making music when I was 11, my empathy and my personal development increased significantly. And basically, I was better. How do you say that in English? I was better at communicating through music than I was with, for example, spoken language. So thanks to music and thanks to watching a lot of films and games, I started to learn emotions better, and it
mm,
made not only myself better, but also my craft also. So basically, yeah, the feeling to do this full time was always there, because there is nothing else I would want to do. Music
yeah,
is my living, and music is part of my personality as well.
yeah. It's that last resort. It's that there's no other thing, which is yeah, it's kind of like there's like burn the ships. I don't know
Yeah,
if you know. It's
absolutely.
kind of like that where you just say fuck it. Like this is what I want. Whether I'll
Yeah,
be a millionaire, a Hans Zimmer right now, or just another little composer. I was just thinking to myself because before this, it's so cool that we can make music and stay kind of behind the scenes and sometimes make like an honorable and sometimes 5 6 figures a year from being in the backgrounds and just doing our thing.
yeah,
And that's crazy because like for people who, let's say, in COVID, where people didn't have jobs, right? Like people didn't have jobs for 2 years. Like people like you and me had more jobs than ever
absolutely.
because things have been more active in that realm and stuff like that. So that's super interesting to me.
It's also funny that you mentioned that when you're starting out, you want to become the next Hans Zimmer. You want to become a millionaire. I mean, for me, it was never about becoming a millionaire or becoming rich with music. I was already
Mm,
happy if I just had my studio and my own home. But
mm,
there was a company when I was during COVID, in the first couple of lockdowns of COVID, when that happened. I wanted to work with real orchestras, and I knew a library. I'm not going to say the name. I knew a library that was able to provide that just through, for example, audio movers and Zoom, so you could record with real orchestras from the comfort of your home. Because they were recording with musicians in a country that wasn't very strict on the rules and lockdowns.
yeah.
So when I was interviewing with this company, they asked me, "Do you want to become the new Hans Zimmer?" And I told them I don't want to become the first of the new Hans Zimmer, because he's already around. He's doing his stuff and he's there. I said I want to become the first Jelle Dittmar. And I think this attitude is so critical in being seen as a professional, because you know that you have a certain sound that you might think people are interested in. And when I said this, they basically hired me on the spot. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
of
basically
course.
stay true to yourself and don't try to copy or imitate someone else. I mean, you can be inspired by other artists or other composers, but always try something new and refreshing and bring something original to the table as well.
It sounds like you're coming from a place of you're doing networking, what people call networking. I don't like that term, but I will just use it for because that's what people know it as. But it seems like you connect with people both online and offline. Like I
Yeah,
see you, I see you very. It looks like you're everywhere and anywhere at the same time. You know what I mean? Like, and
yeah, yeah.
it's a great thing to portray. I feel like on in a very lonely bedroom producer kind of world that we have. How do you go about real life connections versus emails and versus online?
Yeah, well, basically, when I start working with a label, it's always through email. When I'm pitching a demo, it's always through email. I use Reelcrafter for my demo reels and my audio reels, and then I just send them to them. And when I look at the label, I always look at what they have done with the companies they work for, and if it's something that I could provide anything interesting to. So I'm not going to email a label that specializes in hip hop or in pop rock because that's not what I do. So when I approach a label, I always look if it's anything that I can provide to them, and if it's something that they can use to get some placements to. Because if it doesn't provide any placements and it's just sitting on the bench, it doesn't do anything, it doesn't generate money, so it's not of interest to me and not of interest to the label. But when I have established this connection, a good example was that I went to Los Angeles, to LA, for the first time in September. And basically I just scheduled appointments with labels, with libraries, to just meet up with them, because it's so important. That you know each other through email and social media, but it's so important to just meet each other in real life, in real person, because it's way different than online. So I always try to strike a good balance between online networking and offline networking. I think it's
Mm,
very good. I mean, there was a conference a week ago, or this week, no, last week, at the Amsterdam Dance event, and there was a panel with or a conference with all composers, music supervisors. I just went there because you never know when you're going there who you meet and what fruitful relationship will come out of that. So it's very important to just go to real time conferences as well, wherever you are
that's
in the world.
amazing, man. That's amazing. That's exactly it. Yeah, I saw again in your socials. It was great, and yeah, I was just talking to my friend Eric Bolivar last week or in a few weeks ago, and we were sitting at his spot, and because I was for the first time in my life in LA, actually a bit after you were in LA, so I was there for PMC
Yeah, I saw.
and just met all the labels that I've worked with, and it just deepens the connections so much. I'm gonna like my episode 50 for the podcast is with somebody who's become a dear friend of mine, Tom from Brand X, and it's just like, meeting him in real life just justified what I felt when I was interviewing him online. And it was like, what a cool dude. I want to know this person. And then meeting that person in real life is just it amplifies it, and
Absolutely.
it could also upset, but it
Yeah,
usually
absolutely.
amplifies. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, there are some relationships I have in my network where I can communicate better through email or online than in personal, because they're or silent or just not very talkative. But on email, we just are to the point, we get the job done. And it just depends on the person you work with, what works best. For me, emails always work good because I can think about a reply. And when I'm in real life communicating, like what we're doing right now, even I can sometimes be impulsive. So I always like an email because I can think about what I'm going to say. And this is
Right.
sometimes also very good for, yeah, it just depends on the person you're talking to. But I
Yeah,
also I had
yeah.
a trip to North Macedonia when we were recording an album for BMG with live strings, and the A&R manager that I knew from the beginning when I started out with BMG, he offered to go with me on that trip and to help me and to aid me into with the recording process. And I think the connection there also became stronger than just communicating through email. So yeah, it
Of
just
course.
depends. Yeah,
And it's like these are the things that that make or break relationships, and also like they help when you, let's say that person from BMG now starts his own thing, right? Like you are going to support him for sure because he's
absolutely.
the homie now, and he is going to support you because he's been on BMG and he knows his thing, he knows his deal. So that's a huge thing, man. That's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, basically, it's all depends on regarding your connections. I mean, it's basically this industry is so connected with all the networking and that kind of stuff. It's basically essential if you want to survive in this industry to have a strong network, but also to be kind yourself. I mean, always stay respectful towards each other. I had some libraries that I don't have a connection with anymore for any reason you can think of. But it's very very important to stay humble in this industry, to be respectful of each other's boundaries as well, and just be a great guy to work with. And that also adds up to if you have a job that you don't think you can do, just do it. I always live by the credo from Master Yoda from Star Wars: do or do not. There is no try, because
Mm,
you are the guy they are coming to, and you need to get stuff done. Um, and this is also very important. Just get the job done is also a very important term in this industry.
mm. So, like, how does your time? What does your day look like today? Because we were talking before that, and you were telling me that you basically don't have time for breaks, which I'll probably implore you to put some breaks in your day
Yes,
from like just like a
absolutely.
health standpoint. But how does your time? How do you divide your time within this sync realm nowadays? I
Yeah.
mean, like between libraries, between like paid and unpaid gigs, and you know like upfront and royalties. How do you divide that and really make sense out of it?
Yeah, currently I am trying to do more in balancing personal life and working life, because when I started out, I was just composing every day of the week and basically every hour in the day. But right now, I'm trying to strike a better balance. So currently, I'm starting at around 9 with my work and then stop at 4 or 5. I always said I never want to have a 9 to 5 job in my life, but right now it's the best way to strike a balance between personal life and work life. So that's basically the time I'm using. um, but I still work basically every day of the week except on the weekends. But if there is a job coming that has a strict deadline, I make an exception for that. But basically that's very important because I was always making music, and at some point I almost struck burnout. So it's very important to just dial it down a bit because you need to keep this up for the rest of your life. So striking a good balance in the beginning of your career is very important. But yeah, regarding royalties and upfronts and that kind of stuff, I'm mainly working on gigs that provide royalties, like for BMG library music. I do that. There are a couple of libraries I work with that provide upfronts, but they are becoming more and more less in the couple of years. There are not many libraries anymore that provide upfront fees, but the ones that still do, I cling to life to work with them, because it really helps. But basically, the more music you create on the back end and it delivers more on the back end, I have the feeling I go all over the place with my with my
No, no, you're
talking.
killing it. No,
Sorry.
you're
um,
absolutely killing it. Keep going.
Thanks. But basically, with royalties, the main projects I do are a combination between upfronts and a lot of the backends, basically a lot of backend royalties. And I just did my first video game as well, for Atari. That was basically an upfront. There are no royalties over there, but I do keep the Spotify royalties. But yeah, that's basically the balance I have a little bit, regarding the types of gigs I do. Some provide upfront, but the most are just for the back end.
That's amazing. How'd you get land that Atari gig?
That is basically also due to networking. I have a composer friend, Tom Schipper. He's a very good composer, and he's a king in traditional composing. He does know music theory, and he is an amazing composer and a great friend also. And he basically has a connection with Atari, with their A&R manager for the music department, or the head of production. And they wanted him to create the music for that game. And he said, well, that's not the style that I am comfortable writing in, but I know that Jelle is a composer that can do that. So I pitched a demo to them. I started talking with them through email, and within a couple of weeks, I got the gig. So it was due to networking that I got that gig.
Yeah, it's so in I think it's gonna be like 2 weeks back from when this episode comes out. I talked to Eric and we were talking about the value of slow burn relationships, and what we were speaking to is that when you have people who vouch for you, who put their name on the line with by saying your name and standing behind it, like risking their relationship for putting your name in front of them. This I like for me this. I okay. I'll say it. I'll phrase it like this. For me, it only happens through people I've met in real life,
Yeah, true.
and because they know you're good at what they do, but they also know how you feel. Like they also know how you sound. They also know how you talk when you're impulsive. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
we,
yeah,
we were talking
absolutely.
about we were talking about like the emails and stuff like that. And yeah, like in email we can edit everything we were saying and be like so professional and so like this and so like that. But this all goes out the window when you go into an event, right? Like the thing with the funny thing with like networking events and that you see the room is usually divided to two people: the people who are there to pitch and the people who are there to connect. That's how it felt to me in PMC. That's how it always feels to me. And usually from my 32 years on this earth, people who come to connect are in for that slow burn relationship, and they are in and they know the value of somebody putting their name on the line for you, and they know how to put another person's name on the line when they need to. So yeah,
Absolutely.
it's huge what you're saying. Huge.
Yeah, and basically, if people do put your or their name on the line, you better not screw it up, man.
Mm.
Because I, with the Atari gig, I was so nervous, and I was and when I'm getting nervous, I'm getting very excited about the gigs. And in the early days of my career with libraries and that kind of stuff, I obviously made mistakes. And I did some projects that, well, right now I think, oh, that could have been so much better. But it's also a growing process. And basically, when people trust you enough, you already have proved yourself that you are reliable and that you can provide quality, because otherwise I wouldn't do it. So when people um, trust trust me enough on their project, I already know, well, I did a good job somewhere else. Let's make this one count as well. So yeah, it's very difficult to yeah, just don't screw it up, basically, if someone putting their name on the line.
100%. And also, I mean, like, present yourself as I think another thing comes up is present yourself as your don't only put your best foot forward. Maybe in the beginning you should, but you know, like even your friend, it shows maturity to go up to a company like Atari and saying, I'm not comfortable producing in that style.
Yeah,
And I feel like that's a big power as well. Yeah, like, you know, how did you say,
do or do not. There is no try.
do it or not, there's no trying. And I mean, like, if there's a way to try, then try it. But
Absolutely.
exactly, like, if you know that it's a do or do not and you're closer to the do not, then just do not.
Yeah, and also
And yeah.
I had this interesting conversation at the Amsterdam Dance event with a composer, and he said to me that his worth, basically his brand worth, became more because he sometimes just says no. And when you say no, then people realize, oh, he has knowledge about himself, what he can or cannot do. So, and basically, every time he said no to a company, his salary went up a little bit. So I don't know
Mm.
how that happened. I need to experience that for myself as well.
Shit,
Uh,
I'm starting to say no to everyone.
yeah, absolutely.
Wow,
But
I'm gonna
basically,
be a millionaire next year.
absolutely. I mean, basically, it helped him to be a more creditable source in the trader branch because he works in traders. And when he said no, he only got the gigs that he actually wanted to do, but he also got paid more. I don't know how he did it, but it's something I also need to do more often because most projects I say yes because I just like everything so much. But the projects, I mean, I'm saying no more often right now because I've done a lot of solo piano albums because my main instrument is piano. And at some point, it just felt like an office job, like cranking out track after track. And right now, I'm saying no to basically anything that has solo piano in it because it
Mm,
becomes so boring at some point. And it's also something. It's you need to keep this job up for the rest of your life if you're planning to do this for the rest of your life, of course. Um, so you need to keep things more interesting for yourself as well. And this is why I collaborate with a lot of different artists. I did an album with a Amsterdam beat maker that samples all kinds of street sounds, and he makes very ambient sounding beats. His name is Zach Masagrande, and he's a very very good producer. And I basically worked on that album with him. He made the electronic beats, and I did the orchestral sound beds for that. And it turned out to be a very very interesting album. And that album is hopefully coming out next month. But I
nice.
also did some other stuff. I'm currently working on an Americana album or trader album with someone here in my local town that plays a lot of Americana instruments like mandolin, lap steel, string guitar, dobro as well, banjo, and basically collaborate with as much people as you can because it not only broadens your sound palette, but it also makes it more interesting for yourself, and you learn so much from those collaborations by working with different people. So yeah, collaborations is also something that I would recommend doing. And also, I worked on. It's also a very nice story. There is a composer that worked on PlayStation on the Horizon series, like Horizon Zero Dawn, Forbidden West, and he wanted to do more production music. So I brought him in, and then I cannot tell you what we did, but it's crazy. It's absolutely mental. A lot of percussion, orchestral instruments, and that is hopefully coming out next year. But this is one of the best albums I've done in my entire career, just because I decided to collaborate with someone else on an album.
Yeah. And I think this is an industry where a lot of people bring a lot of people up. It's like almost unusual, and it's great. Like also, I think I told you. I think I no, we didn't talk about it, but in PMC, I would see like the best of the best library owners just sitting with each other and playing the guitar and playing
Yeah,
music and just like chilling and really like not the last thing I felt when I was there was that there's competition between those people. It seemed like they love each other more than they compete with each other, which is it's a very unique thing. And man, like you're speaking my language with the collaboration. The feeling to do things by myself was so. I think it's the Taurus in me. I'm a Taurus, and Tauruses are known to be very very stubborn, and I feel like doing things by myself try to kind of validated something like it gave me like an ego boost or whatnot that I can do this or whatnot. But you know what, go now I almost don't do things by myself, like to be honest. I do when it's like maybe guitar ambient stuff that I can just crank like you said, but the most interesting things come out to the world. There is no pop song that you hear on the radio that was made by one person. Maybe okay, like Bon Iver, maybe the dude from Tame Impala. I always forget his name, but like, there's a few people who can really do it all, and I'm not sure they also mix all their stuff. But anyway, hearing something that I make interpreted by something else, there is nothing that brings me more joy, to be honest. Like even if it's
absolutely.
shit,
Yeah,
even when it's shit,
absolutely.
like it's like hilarious. It's like wow, that's what he thinks. that's a piece of shit. But like it's still cool to see that that's what this person interprets it as. And I mean, like, also I'm going on this a bit of a rant, but like, through this podcast, I've met so many amazing people who come up to me. They listen to my stuff. They're like, I want to work with you. Here are a few things. I can always tell, like it's something that I feel like people kind of, they become better at noticing the bullshit. Because there are people who are just like, "Hey, Roy," and then they give you their pitch email, right? Like on
Oh
LinkedIn.
yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's lovely. But like I have a lot of people who approach me through this, and they take a listen to what I do. They come up to me. They say, "Hey, I think these 5 tracks would actually really fit you. Do you think that we can do something with it?" And then I'll go like, either nah, that's actually not the direction, or hell yeah, there's a label that I'm working with that actually works on, that actually gave me a brief for this. Let me spit something on this, and I'll send it back to you. And then it's just like this creative loop. This is what I do for, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not doing this to sit in my room for a 9 to 5. I didn't start doing this because of that.
No, absolutely not. I mean, there's always. I mean, you probably get a lot of LinkedIn direct messages, but yeah, I'm because I'm a composer. I get those significantly less, and I'm not very. But it started to occur to me that a lot of those direct messages that people send to me that they want to work with me, often they don't even know what I'm doing, because I've got a lot of direct messages on LinkedIn, and it's all also bedroom producers, and it's perfectly fine. But they are in a complete different genre, and they have probably not even listened to my own music or listened to what I do. They only see the success stories, but they haven't listened
Right.
to my music. And this is something
Right.
that I also am seeing in the direct messages on LinkedIn. Just
That's the Yeah, that's a recurring theme on the podcast, is like, what's the biggest problem about being famous? Like, the biggest problem about being famous is that people don't know you and they want a piece of you all the time. And like, I can imagine, man, because again, like on LinkedIn, you look like it doesn't only look, I'm just like, you're basically like killing it, and you're doing it right, and people want a piece of that. So it would make sense to me.
yeah, it's also
I'm gonna send you something, bro. I want you to rap on my tracks. Is that all
yeah,
right?
like I'm not a rapper. I'm a classical composer or a cinematic composer. So it's something that you should be very aware of, because when you get success, you really need to be careful that people do not take advantage of you. And this is still, I'm not saying I'm famous or that I'm the best in the industry or that I'm or big in the industry. I think I'm doing okay. But it's something that I'm starting to get more aware of, that people want something from you. It's always when I get a DM or I get an email, I always have this feeling right now that they want something from me, and I always need to try to shake that feeling off. But there have been a couple of times that people um, pass the quality mark and then still try to rip me off or something like that. There was a composer in LA that wanted to work with me, and it sounded very interesting what he sent it to me, and I said, yeah, let's work on something together. I say, send me the stems you have. And then the first notification in my head from this can be wrong, he sent me mp3s for the stems.
Mm,
And like, this is a quality check error. Don't ever send some mp3s. And I said, how many libraries did you work for? How many albums for libraries did you work for? And I never got a reply to that. So I googled his name in BMI and discovered there was no composer with his name or aliases in the BMI register on Songview. So this was basically, I said, well, according to BMI, you never worked on a library at all. You don't have any tracks in BMI as well. And I never heard from him again. So it's very, very important to just to stay aware when you're getting bigger or more successful in the industry. So stay aware, but always try to see the best in people. I mean, that balance is also very, very important to have.
yeah, I feel like seeing a person and their talents and their personality, and also seeing where they're at, because sometimes it's nice. Like, I mean, man, it's so nice to bring people up. It feels amazing, but they need to be in the place where they can do the work.
Yeah.
Which yeah, that is the thing that I feel like I'm doing the podcast for people who are maybe not there yet and can say I'm not there yet, just like, again, just like your friend with Atari. He was like, I'm not making this right now, so I'm passing this to my homie. And being able to have that humility, that humbleness, that ability to say, hey, this guy is up there, I want to work with him one day. But right now, I don't have a BMI registration. This person is probably burnt forever. The guy who
Yeah.
sends you the
I don't.
MP3s, and that
I mean, I don't
sucks.
even remember his name. It was like a very
Yeah, but
quick collaboration or something,
a
and it's
hundred
just
percent.
like it passed on, and it was a mistake from my side, but maybe from his side as well. I don't know.
But
But
that's but
always stay
that's how,
humble.
yeah. Yeah, but that's how people burn bridges. Like, especially, like, you hear it a lot from libraries and from supervisors. Supervisors are very, very, very big like that, with people burning, like, people burn bridges with them without knowing, because they just put their stuff in spam, so they're no more in their inbox. And I mean, it kind of sucks to do work for nothing. So just, I feel like what I get from this conversation with you is just like, be intentional, be humble, and do the work. Like, I feel like these are the big three that I'm kind of hearing for you from you.
Absolutely.
And I'm loving how you speak to it, because you speak with so much maturity. And it feels like, I know, like, it doesn't feel like, I know that you're gonna be doing really, really big things in the coming years. So
Thank you,
I'm
man.
super
Thanks.
excited to see to see that unfold in front of my eyes. And I'll encourage my people to follow you. So, like, what's on the horizon for you? What's next for you?
Currently, I just try to deliver all the albums that I have scheduled right now in a timely manner. But I'm really trying to get more into video games. So I'm trying to. I'm still doing library music because library music is such a great, fun thing to do. And I'm trying to get more into games at the same time as well. In the next couple of 5 years, I'm really trying to get to build my own studio. And a long-term vision that I have for the longer term of my life is to build a studio or a workplace where people with autism in my hometown can come to make some music, take a share in the royalties as well, and just have a great time making music. Because for me, music was such a great way of changing my personality. It was such a great way to improve my personality as well. And I want to give this chance to more people with autism. And I know a lot of people with autism because I'm still working at the school that I was studying at here in my hometown, a special education school. And I know a lot of, I see a lot of kids with talent, but they never get the possibility to develop a talent or to get into music on a professional way. So I'm trying to build a studio here in my hometown of Emmeloord. No one has heard of that town at all. They always say, when I'm saying from the Netherlands, they'll say, "Oh, you're from Amsterdam." Yeah, 1 hour drive. But basically, I'm trying to build a studio where people with autism or with any other disability can come to make music and basically can share in the royalties as well, and try to provide them with the tools to get by in this world. So it's basically a long-term vision that I have for the future.
That's amazing, man. So, like, I've started doing something on the podcast, and I ask one thing: what's something you're really grateful for?
I can do this for the rest of my life. I mean, currently I've a lot of production music libraries that I work for. I only have to send one email, and I've worked for the rest of the week if I'm not careful. So I'm very grateful of the network that I've built and all the amazing people I've met along the way, and basically that I can do this every day as a living. That's something I'm truly grateful of. Yeah.
That's amazing, man. Where can people follow you?
They can follow me on LinkedIn. It's Jelle Dittmar. I mean, I don't know if I need to spell it, but my English spelling is very, very bad. But Jelle Dittmar, they can follow me on LinkedIn, on Instagram. They can follow me on Spotify as well to listen to my music. And those are basically the main three platforms they can follow me.
Amazing, man. Thanks so much for coming on. I'll put all
Yes,
the
thank you.
details in the show notes. And
Yeah.
man, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, man. Thanks so much.
Yo, if you enjoyed this, please give it a 5-star rating and a review on Apple if you can. Also share it on your socials. It really helps. It really, really helps, and it counts. And just let me know what you thought about this on socials. And I love you. See you on the next one.